Okay, so the presentation tonight is two-part. First part is the Mill Springs Heiress Contact, which is coming up the 1st of May. The week of the 1st of May, we'll know probably by next Tuesday or so exactly which day in the week it's going to be. Martha and I and John, hopefully we'll get Martha to say a word or two. She's still here. Is Martha still here? Yeah. And Jim Stafford will say a few words about that. And then after that, Nathan will talk about 13 colonies. So that's a great presentation. Don't want to miss that. Martha, W4MSA, is a Mill Springs Academy pre-upper science teacher. Maybe she'll explain what pre-upper means, but it's the grades. She's also the ARRL Georgia Section Assistant Manager and Youth Coordinator. She's also on the NARFO Board of Directors. Martha's kind of busy these days. In the middle of all that, she put together this presentation, or this proposal, to go to the Heiress administrators, and that's how all this started. And that process started back last April, a year ago. Martha, you want to say a word or two? That's the only slide you had to back you up there.
Alrighty, so if I'm simply saying one word, let me say thanks. Obviously this wouldn't happen with without all your help, so thank you. But yeah, our heiress is coming up amazingly rapidly. We will know hopefully a week from today when it will be, and we truly hope that many of you come out and join us. Phenomenal event, just totally blew my mind last time, and we had so much fun. And when I found out that if you've done it once, you actually can apply again, so we did. And amazingly, we got it, and it's in progress. What else would you like to know? Come on down. Okay. One of our student speakers is here. Josh Drew will be one of our speakers, so you want to say howdy?
Yeah.
He's practicing. All righty?
Very good. Thanks, Martha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Thanks, so these were a couple of photos from the contact they did back in 2013. And Jim, maybe he'll talk about that, but I think he's got some shirts ordered for the kids so that all the kids may be out there in green again this year. So the station, you guys have probably all seen it at field day. 2-meter circular polarized antenna, AR square mass mounted 2-meter preamp, alpha spid azimuth elevation rotators. So we're going to track the ISS as it goes across using the NARFO mast, or mobile automated satellite tower. We use it Kenwood TS2000 radio for transmit and receive, SAT PC32 for satellite tracking and azimuth elevation control. And the backup radio will be an IC910, which is a kind of a satellite-specific radio with just a ground plane antenna. Lori will be operating the backup station, so hopefully we don't have to go to that, but if we do, it'll be in great hands. And here's an example of that. Just did download this image from the ISS on the 12th. Don't know if anybody's ever tried to get slow scan images off moving satellites, but it's not all that easy. A lot of times, because they'll start, especially if it's automated, because they'll start the transmit process and maybe they're coming towards you so you get half a picture, and then it's straight overhead and they're taking their break and not transmitting anything, they start again. So you get 2 half of pictures with a lot of noise in it. You know, the video noise, like, oh, actually I have a thing here. Like that. That green band is just noise across, there's one noise line there, and that was it. I mean, it's only a 640 by 496. It's enlarged here, so that's a really good image. Anyway, that was off the same ground plane antenna that we'll be using as a backup. So I think we'll be okay if we have to go to that. Hello, John Kludt is going to tell us about Heiress. Down arrow or the whole light thing is laser.
Well, hello everybody. I thought what we do, see, I'm supposed to stand, like, is this okay? There you go, okay. What I want to do is just take a few minutes to explain to you how Martha got to where she got. A lot of people think that talking to the International Space Station is like a couple guys got together and said, hey, you know, let's put a handy-talkie on the ISS and one on the ground, and let's talk to each other. Well, in fact, the ARIS program is a it's a formal experiment on the ISS. In NASA parlance, it's called the ham radio experiment. So we're up there for a couple reasons. Let me see now if I can get this to work right. There are a number of partners that are involved. AMSAT, probably isn't too much of a surprise. The ARRL is one of the participants. We're supported by NASA, by CASIS. That's the Center for the Advancement of Science and Space. They do a lot of the experiments on the ISS. And then we are also supported by and joined by amateur radio organizations in Europe, the European Space Agency, Canada, the Canadian Space Agency, Japan, the Japanese Space Agency, and Roscosmos, the Russian Space Agency. So this is really a pretty formal thing. Why are we up there, and what are the goals of the program? Well, obviously the primary goal is to inspire people to pursue careers in STEM-related curriculum, science, technology, engineering, and math. And it's a very kind of a hands-on and exciting way to make it happen. It does provide an educational opportunity for people to learn not only about space, but also about amateur radio. Much of what Jim is doing is the lead into this. One of the things that's very important in this program is this not just be a 10-minute contact where the kids come into the gym and there's a 10-minute contact and they leave again. The magic to 10 minutes is if you're 250 miles up and traveling at 17,500 miles an hour, it takes 10 minutes to go from horizon to horizon. So this is a line of sight contact, and that's the magic to for the 10 minutes. Provide an opportunity for amateur radio experimentation and evaluation of new technologies. Probably the best example of that at the present time is there is an amateur radio television transmitter on the ISS. It was put together by the European Space Agency. It's on 2.3 gigahertz, and it is a DVB-S transmission. Unfortunately, you can't use a set-top box. Commercial stuff includes within it, if you will, a data dictionary. For reasons that none of us really understand, when they built this transmitter, they left the data dictionary out. So the software on the ground has to supply that. There are a couple receivers that do that. Provide a contingency communication for NASA. That was probably more important in the old days, but one of the reasons we're still there is the folks that are responsible for communications with the ISS still want us there because it does provide a backup to the current systems, and then it does provide a crew the means to talk with people. I often get asked, do they do random contacts? And basically the answer, unfortunately, is no. I know recently we had an Italian ham up, and every time he was over Italy, he was just talking to as many Italians as he could, but that doesn't happen all that often. 2017, there were 81 contacts internationally, of which 27 were from the US. We're able to schedule about 60, 90 contacts a year. There's actually a fair amount of work that goes on, making sure those slots are equally divided by the various supporting agencies. So far, we've done over 1,100 contacts to date. We had our 1,000th contact last year. One of the things we stress with the schools is that everyone that does this is a volunteer, including the astronauts. They are basically volunteering their time to participate, and the availability of them is important. One of the things that makes scheduling these so difficult, is right now the astronauts are scheduled for their daily activity in 5-minute blocks of time. So for us to get 15 minutes, 5 minutes to set up and 10 minutes for the contact is really a pretty big deal to make that happen. There is a proposal that's involved. Martha referenced that. It's a two-step process. First, the schools have to do an educational and media outreach plan, and then they have to do a technical proposal. How are they going to put the equipment together to do it? There are two ways that we connect with the ISS. The one that Mill Springs will use and the one that you saw last time is called a direct contact. Basically, this implies that the radio station is at the school and the ISS is overhead. A series of criteria have to be met. Number one, the astronaut has to have the time. Number two, the students have to have the time. And number three, it needs to be in the sky when the first two criteria are met. It really does provide hands-on radio experience for everyone. And this is just an example of what that would look like. The second method of doing it is a telebridge. A telebridge, for those of you who've been around a while, is also really a phone patch. We have a series of ground stations around the world. It's one of the things that makes us valuable in terms of backup communication. And what will happen is the radio contact is made to the ISS by one of the ground stations. Primarily at the present time, we use ground stations in Argentina, Europe, Australia, and the United States. There's one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. And again, it provides the same opportunity. I can tell you, having done both of them, as far as the students are concerned, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. They're talking to an astronaut on station, and that's what the really cool thing is. This is what the proposal timeline looks like, and I won't walk through the whole thing. I admit it's an art chart. As was noted, it starts in April of probably the year before. There's two windows, one in the spring, one in the fall. We're just closing a current window. You develop a proposal. If your proposal is accepted, then you go on to the next phase. You get assigned a mentor. That's someone like me who's kind of done this a few times, can help you through the paperwork. Being a mentor is really a project management task. There are a lot of steps that need to be handled. You need to come up with an equipment plan if you're doing it direct. Daryl mentioned they're using the IC-910 and a ground plane for the backup station. Remember, we're dealing with NASA here. And NASA doesn't do anything without a backup plan. So the primary station is this fancy station with all the Azel rotors and maybe computer control. The secondary station is meant to be completely independent. I think last time we did it with Martha, we actually had the backup station plugged into a different circuit breaker, so that if we tripped a breaker, we'd still have something to do. And once the equipment plan is suggested, you go into a long wait period where you come up with questions and story. The story that Martha had to generate is basically 300 words. You're about to meet an astronaut for the first time. What do you want them to know about you? Why are you doing this? Who are you? The second thing are the questions. 20 questions, generally. And it's amazing the number of people that actually read them and approve them. Those two things go into something called an uplink file. So the astronaut has a time and a chance to think about the questions so that they don't get caught cold. Last time Martha did it, one of the questions was, what happens when you cry in space? Well, the had never cried in space. But he did allow, as part of his prep, what he did was he threw some water in his eyes to see what would happen. And of course, what did happen, for those of you who haven't heard the story, is the tear just continues to build until the surface tension exceeds the tension to hold it to your eyelash, and then it just kind of breaks off and floats off into space. Martha mentioned about 6 weeks prior to the contact, we just went through this, you'll get a list of passes when the ISS is overhead at a time when the astronauts are available. You rank them, and then for those of you who's ever been through one of these types of processes, your ranked list goes to the NASA Mission Planning Group, who give you your highest choice compatible with everything else that's going on in the ISS at the time. Remember, I said they're scheduled in 5-minute blocks. That's the reason why you won't know, we won't know the exact date and time until into business Houston on the Monday of the week preceding the contact. Now that is kind of unnerving to a lot of people. Particularly, we've had trouble sometimes with like museums because they're used to saying, well, I want this event to occur at 12:15 on Saturday. That might be kind of difficult. Then we have the contact. Everybody has a great time, and we're on with things. These were some key dates for this year. You'll notice there was an equipment plan, or the educational plans, the window's about to close, proposal acceptance, equipment plan, and then the contact window. So right now, we're actually accepting proposals for the first half of 2019. This requires a fair amount of planning in the future. And these are just places, if any of you work with schools that are interested, Martha can tell you about it. These are places you can get interest. The thing I wanted to try to impart to you is to let you know that this really is a very well planned out process. This just isn't a random contact. Every Wednesday night you'll find me on the phone at 5 o'clock local time with a group of other mentors from all the way around the world. Satoshi's there from Japan, Peter, Karen, the folks from Europe, Tony and Shane, the two guys from Australia. And we're all on the phone every Wednesday night planning this out and making sure that this happens. So it really, it's an exciting opportunity. It's very well regulated. This is NASA that we're dealing with. And it takes a lot of work to make it happen. And I think, any questions on that? Yes?
What is the what's the selection process for choosing who gets to be put on the schedule? And is it unusual that, or is it rare that MSA has gotten it in such short order or seamless?
So you're really, what I hear you asking is, how do you get selected from your proposals? There is a committee that reads the proposals, and generally what they're looking for is they are looking for how are you going to integrate this contact with the curriculum for what's going on with the rest of the school. Do you have support? Do you have support? Sometimes we'll get proposals in from the teacher, but the principal doesn't know about it. That usually doesn't work too well. And so that's one of the things we look for is support. There's also a blank to discuss support from the amateur radio community. Are they going to be available? Yes?
Does the fact that we have had one contact improve the chances of keeping going?
I don't know if it improves it. It doesn't really hurt it. There are some, Space Jam in Rantoul, Illinois has had one every year for like the last 8 years. This year they weren't selected, and I think we did some Boy Scouts instead. One of the things that is that is important to NASA is how many people are you going to impact with this? A Boy Scout Jamboree with 15,000 people in it that's a lot of impact. If you're doing the contact, it's also some real pucker time, hoping to heck that it all works out. Yes, ma'am.
One of Josh's questions is coming from England, did you say? In Great Britain? Yeah. How did that happen? I mean, where did those questions come from?
Martha has a relationship with a school in England, and we've actually done a fair amount of things with them, more things we want to do. And so they asked if they could submit some questions, and the answer was yes. And so 3 of the 20 questions, I believe it's 3, isn't it? Yes. Came from the students in England. Now, over in Europe, sometimes you'll see multiple schools on the same contact. The school in Poland gets, just did one, the school in Bulgaria gets the first 10 questions, and the school in Italy gets the second 10 questions. So that's another way that we've done it. Any other questions? Yes?
Will there be any local news coverage or anything, or media? Or?
Well, we certainly hope so. If you can help arrange that, get a hold with Martha. We kind of hit the jackpot, was it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, with a contact out on Long Island. We were actually congratulated by some of the folks from the ARO, quote, you hit the big time, because we had ABC, NBC, and CBS, all from New York City, covering the event. We just did one last week in Pinson, Alabama, and one of their TV stations carried it live as breaking news. So, so yes, we always hope for lots of media coverage. And again, that's something that NASA looks for. It's that how many people have you touched? Okay, well,
So
I guess
if you
then
know
we'll,
any media people, let us know.
I think that's the end of my talk, and now, Jim?
Jim.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Let me just a second, Jim. Is everybody able to see the projector okay these days? You should be able to see it a little bit better than you did, say, last year. That's something I left out earlier. Part of the budget this year is a new projector, which is quite a bit brighter. So if you still have trouble seeing the fonts, you know, there's a lot of extra spaces. Move up forward, and we'll work on trying to make sure we use, you know, a minimum size of font so we make it big enough for you. But we don't have to turn the lights out anymore.
Does that work better?
No.
Yeah.
One
How many think, yeah, it worked better when we turned the lights off?
All the
How many
same.
thought it would worse with the lights off? Okay, turn them off.
Off?
Worse with the lights on.
3 people, it's 3 to none. The rest don't care. Okay, I want to make a couple of comments. This will be the 5th Aris contact, or yeah, I guess it was even before it, the International Space Station, I think, when we made our first one about 25 years ago. And things were a lot looser then, as John always reminds me. A little story about that. The school, it was in the early 90s, and the school was Addison Elementary in Cobb County, right off of Sandy Plains. And we had all hooked up and everything, ready to go in the pass and all this, and we had news coverage. And by the way, it was in the summer, and there were 400 people came back with parents and students came back to the gymnasium to experience that. And the local news was there, and just as we were about ready to go, they flip all the lights on, and we blew the circuit breaker. And we had everything on the same, it was a gymnasium, we just had it plugged in the wall, you know. So we were talking to Houston at that point, and we told them we blew the fuse, and because it was summertime, I don't know if we had a maintenance person there or not. Nobody knew where the fuse box was or anything. So they said, well, see, it was a lot more informal, and they said, how about the next pass? Can you do that in an hour or 90 minutes from now? And we go, anybody want to wait around for 90 minutes? And everybody says, yeah, we wait around. So we ran extension cords down the hall and all this kind of thing. We had the TV lights and all that on a different circuit, and we pulled it off. And we actually, I think we can say we were the first ones to receive slow scan television from whatever was up there at the time. I guess it might have been ISS, whatever it was. And they sent a picture, and I have the picture. Let's see, I have a picture of what they received from us, and I think we received a picture from them. All this in 10 minutes. Anyway, Martha asked. By the way, you probably can sense and probably already know there are a lot of people in this club that are tied into a lot of pretty important things, like John being the area. How big area do you cover, John? The fourth call area, just about. He is the point person for all of that. Martha's the youth coordinator for the state of Georgia. You know, there are many others I'm missing here, but there are a lot of people here. There are several PhDs in the audience here that had a life of electronics and all kinds of stuff, and you're in a really good bunch here, I think, and makes North Fulton really we are the best. I mean, let's face it. So, anyway, and Atlanta is a close second. I mean, I will say that. Where's the button here? How do you do this? Oh my gosh! I want to see the spotter. Where's this? Oh, there it is. It's the other end. I got it. I had it the wrong way in my hand. I got it. Okay. I'm going to talk about something here that is really at the heart of amateur radio, because the part I'm going to talk about is going to be based on what I call ham ingenuity, because we don't know what day it's going to occur. We don't know exactly how we're going to do all this, and we're asking you and others in the club to help us pull off what are called extra activities. And by extra activities, Martha asked, because there was a model for this at Fernbank a couple of years ago during one of these, and this was events. And so we're going to have 4 exhibits, tables, whatever you want to call it, as associated with this. That maybe, this is again the ingenuity part, it may be before the ISS, because if the ISS is late in the day, we want to do these exhibits earlier. If it's in the middle of the day, we're not sure when we'll do it. We're not sure all the things we're going to do to put it together. We're still working on that. There's some planning goes on. I was talking to Grant today about it. There's planning that goes on, but there's only so much you can do. People may find out we don't get that pass, and the person we were counting on to do the exhibit that day is got a doctor's appointment they can't change, or they can't get off work, or la-da-da-da-da. We'll talk some more about those in just a moment. The first part of this is we have applied for the call sign N4S and received it to be used the full week of April 30th through May 4th. And our plan is to use a flex maestro at the school to have contacts over the lunch hour all week long. Now the day of the pass, we may not be able to do it that way. We have something else planned for that day. And I'll get to that in a minute. But you want to keep again, I can't tell you exactly, but you can start looking for this particular situation, this particular activity on 14240 and 7.240 every lunch hour, which is here we go, is a quarter till 1 to quarter till 1 to quarter till 2, something like that. Anyway, right around that period. And they'll be on 40 and 20 meters. And if you work them, you can obtain a certificate. It'll be like a QSL, but it'll be a certificate certifying that you work them. And so anyway, that's going on. And you can look at their call sign is WA4MSA, and you can look on there and see some details about getting a certificate and that kind of thing. We would ask for a donation of $5 if you want a certificate, because we've got to print them, mail them, envelope them, put shirt cardboard in there, all that kind of stuff. So stamps and everything. And what's left over will be the expedition. Wrong way, I figured. Okay, I mentioned this already. This is a true ham ingenuity event. In other words, it's going to be like a simulated emergency test, only we don't know exactly when it's going to be and how we're going to do it. So we have to have a certain number of contingencies and so forth involved, certain amount of plans. We're going to promote ham radio to the students in addition to just talking to the space station. There would be MSA students obviously there, and somebody mentioned this, but we did get a last-minute approval to purchase 400 t-shirts for all the students in the school. 400 green t-shirts, by the way, and I don't have a picture of those up here. But if you're one of the helpers and we have a few extras, we'll see if we can't get you one. There may be others coming to visit. Do we know, Martha, who's coming yet or anything?
No.
No, but we typically have a couple of, huh?
People have been invited, but you can commit when you don't know for sure what it is.
Right, and they don't know for sure when it is and all that. But once they know, then they're very likely. Last time they had 2 or 3 schools that brought a little bus load of people up. And we want to enlist the Mill Springs Amateur Radio Club members like Josh to help us and explain things to other students. That's one of the fun things about it. Okay. Now, the exhibits, they're going to be on, as I said, it could be before, after, during, all this kind of thing. Probably not during, but before or after the actual contact. There are 4 things we've been planning on. First is this an exhibit called This is Amateur Radio, and have displays and handouts there with a couple of highfalutin words called docents there, students preferably, but help with members, you members, help to explain what ham radio is. And as part of that, we're not sure where it fits in between this one and this one, but we're at about a 95% chance we're going to have blue lightning there with N4GG. How many of you were here when we had blue lightning and have seen it on YouTube? It's quite an impressive thing. And another thing we're going to have is a working HF station, but since we're using the Maestro, the blue lightning will not interfere with it. We don't think, but you know, it's experimental, voluntary, and all those kind of things. In addition, Pavel, now by the way, I need a person here because Mark Coleman was going to do this, but he's not feeling well and he doesn't think that he can commit to it. So I would like to have a person that I can talk with and be responsible for making that display work and getting some people to help and all that kind of thing. So if you're interested in heading up that table, you might say, let me know. Pavel, you all know Pavel, he's big on Morse code. I don't know why, but he is. And we've been talking about that some. This is not going to be enough time to have a student sit down and send their name and get a certificate and all that. It's going to be more like tapping on the code, maybe a CD playing code, a bunch of different keys and things like that to demonstrate or show and explain and all those kind of things. So it's again, it's going to be a 5-minute type thing. You're going to get a lot of people by in every 5 minutes and so on. It's the overwhelming aspect of amateur radio. And then Warren Merkel is going to head up our technology table. And as you know, Warren does a lot with Raspberry Pi, Arduinos, and things like that. In fact, he's been a mentor Elmer over at Mill Springs during Arduino classes and that type of thing. And we'll have our famous project where the antenna rotates. That is, unless Pavel has his there where he can talk to the, what do you call that thing? Alexa, and make it rotate that way. That's even more impressive. But we're going to have an Arduino doing that. Warren will have some things there. We're going to have a number of little projects and so forth that people can look at there and talk about and this kind of thing. And then I'll be there with the maestro, and we'll be doing some contacts over the air or playing something on it, or who knows. Again, it's all loosey-goosey and it's all ham ingenuity. So it's not like we're not as organized as John is with the ARIS contacts. For a year we've been planning this and everything. It's just going to come together, but we want to have something there. Now the big thing though is, and I've been talking to Grant and in turn the Aries folks, and they're going to help me. Some of them are going to help me. We're going to actually set up an HF station down on the athletic field. Now there's trees along the side and all that. And at one time we thought we might use a balloon. That was the plan. But I got to checking into it, and balloons are, number one, it's not the balloon that's expensive, it's the the helium you put in it. So you get the tank of helium, which I think we could return, but the problem is we don't know how windy it's going to be, we don't know if it's going to be raining, all these kind of things. So it's not like a normal balloon launch, ham radio balloon launch. If you don't do it this Saturday, you do it next Saturday. So you just hang on to the helium and put it in then. We don't have that choice. It's got to be today, that day. And again, we have to be very flexible. So, hard to do. So we're doing what we call a launched 40-meter antenna. So the plan right now is we're going to have two launched. There are going to be students down there. We don't know how many are going to come, but they're going to be dozens probably. We'll divide them up into groups. They can help. We'll have the cord and the string and all this. We're going to have two tennis ball launchers. We'll let them launch. In other words, the idea is to it would be kind of like, Grant and I were talking like when all else fails, ham radio, that kind of thing. Because we can come in, set up, do it, and be on the air and that kind of thing. Now, Grant and his folks are going to bring a canopy, and we're going to have a table. We're going to have an HF radio. And and this Friday, the plan is the students at the school are going to help me measure off and build a 40-meter dipole. I think we're going to go that way because it's more predictable than the balloon. We're going to shoot it up into trees, pull it up, and students will help pull it up and this kind of thing. And then we'll get on the air. And so we have a real radio, not a flex. Excuse me if you Look into my pointer. No, we'll have a radio there with an antenna, etc. Anyway, okay. And this will be your chance. Whoops. This will be your chance. Yeah, I know it. I want to flex, but I'm not bringing that radio. I'm bringing a real radio. And so again, you'll have a chance. We'll be We'll have stuff on the reflector, everything we can, the Monday night net, all these kind of things. We'll have all kinds of information about when we're going to, by that point we should know when we're going to be on the air. And on the certificate, there will be a special endorsement stamp if you work on this station, the N4S, by this launched antenna project, okay? We'll make a special notation on there on your certificate, so which will be like a QSL card, have the date and time and all that kind of thing on it. So that's coming up, and so if you like to help me, get in touch with me, and we'll be able to use you. And I know a lot of people are asking the question, can they come and help? And Martha said, yeah, you know, come on over, at least stand in the back of the room and see all this. Last time, final story, last time, in terms of publicity, the Channel 5, I guess, Fox News was there, and they did an incredible video. It was like a minute long, and is that on the web anywhere yet?
It's on YouTube.
That's what I thought, yeah. I've seen it many times, but anyway, they were there, they took what they got from the school, merged it with some file footage, and they had the astronauts floating in the ISS, pictures of it and all that kind of thing. And we hope we can do that again. But that was a really magnificent thing they did. So anyway, questions, anybody? Okay? All right.
Thank you. And something I didn't mention earlier about the antenna setup, the way we're going to do it, and Jim doesn't really know this yet either. Hello, Jim. But the tower will have both 70 centimeter and 2 meter on it for two reasons. One reason to balance out the boom, but the other reason is potentially, depending on when the contact happens, we may be able to demonstrate some satellite contacts, say after the ISS contact. So we'll have it set up for regular satellite contacts as well. And then the other thing I didn't mention was we're planning on live stream. So when we know that that's working correctly and everything, all the bugs are worked out, and I'll put the address for that on the reflector. And Nathan here is going to be our camera operator, so hopefully that's going to work out well. Speaking of Nathan, Nathan's going to present 13 colonies for us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Down arrow.
Down arrow. Jim, you mentioned something about having a real radio with the flex. Where's Jim? I just saw him. Oh, I wonder if he's going to be using real power, not just 5 watts, but I'll ask him that later. So I finally found out how copper wire was originally made. Did anybody know this?
Jim probably does.
I know, right? 2 hams saw 1 penny on the floor and both grabbed it. That's how it was made. They just pushed it down. All right, so who's heard of 13 Colonies? It's a pretty good event. It's been happening for quite a while now. The club's been very, very active in it. So like I said, I've been assigned the state coordinator over the last 3 years. And we're really making some really good changes to it, and I think you're going to see a lot of that as I guess where things are coming, and hopefully where we're going to be going to. So what is a 13 Colony special event? And it's basically an annual event that celebrates the independence from Great Britain, and it's usually held during the Independence Week, which is the first week of July. It started back in 2009, a total of 12,000 queues. And just to give you a little bit of size of, in 2017 we were up to 127 queues. So that was quite the growth just in a matter of about 10 years. Each of the 13 colonies are activated by operators in the stage plus 2 bonus stations. So you've got the 13, the 2, and one of them is typically over in Great Britain. I thought we had independence from them, but I guess not. I guess we're tied to them again now. The QSOs are illuminated from, I mean, you will get contacts from all over the entire world, from different countries and stuff. So it's a really fun event. And if you make a contact with each of the 13 colonies, then you get a clean sweep. You don't have to make the contact with the bonus stations, but just each of the 13 colonies. And it's all the way down the East Coast. And so that is considered a clean sweep. You get like an extra stamp on your certificate, and that's actually pretty cool. These certificates are available from the event coordinator, Ken Malone. New York, is he?
Canisius, New York.
Okay, New York. And then, so he's the one that gives these certificates. He does every single one of them himself. It's an amazing job. And then the QSL cards are available from the state coordinators, and at times they'll actually assign a QSL manager for each of the colonies, and those are going to be responsible for the QSL cards. Speaking of the cards, the previous ones that we've actually done, and I only went back as far as the ones that I actually helped Jim with. This was back, I forget what year this was, but so each year they at least assign a different theme. This one was the coinage, and so we basically just put all the coins up there. And each one of these cards is actually a really cool experiment, and they're really cool, I guess, learning process, because I learned a lot of stuff. If something was worth less than a coin, they'd cut the coins in pieces, and that's how they got them in pieces. So that was something I actually learned just trying to make this particular card. Okay, so this was 2015. Benjamin Franklin was actually the colony representative of Georgia for quite a while. Actually spent a lot of time down here and put a lot of effort into the colony, but before it became a state, he was also a contributor to the Declaration of Independence. Something that I also learned is that the other people didn't trust him writing things for the Declaration of Independence because he put something humorous in it that nobody else would catch. And this was the last one that we did, and basically Lieutenant Colonel John McIntosh, he defended fort down in South Georgia somewhere, and basically he was completely outnumbered. He had troops on the inside, the British had troops on the outside, and he was like, basically was ordered to give up his fort, or they were going to come in and get it. And he basically sent the letter back out, and he was like, received this lay on it reply, if you want it, come and take it. The British didn't do it. They walked away, not knowing they were completely, capable of. But
that'd be McIntosh County on the coast.
Correct. Yes, absolutely it is. And which is actually named after Colonel McIntosh now. This is the 10th year of the event, so they kind of wanted to make this special. So you're going to be getting a special certificate. The commemorative QSL cards, and like I said, we're going to try to make this just the extra effort, just to make this the best year ever, with the amount of Qs and with the things that we got going on, even around the event. And I think you're going to be hearing more about that later. This year, it's going to be from July 1st to July 6th. These are all on the internet at 13colonies.net, I think it is. So there's your local date and times, as well as UTC. Georgia's going to be represented this year by approximately 20 operators, maybe 20, maybe 25. And we're all going to be using the call sign of K2G. So we're going to be splitting them up into 5 independent operators and then 5 operators from 3 different clubs. The reason why we're doing that is we wanted to get the clubs participation, and in fact Atlanta is actually going to be one of the clubs participating. I already talked with Newton about that, and they are on board. The reason why we're doing the 5 independent operators is in order to be eligible for one of the awards that Kent puts out, whether it's a top CW or a top high power or top QRP, you have to be an independent operator. Nobody would know who has won the QRP award for as many years as I can remember. W4QO. I've actually done this presentation at a couple of clubs across the state already, and you mentioned W4QO. Oh yeah, I know him. I know. Everybody's got their own story about him. So we're going to be offering sideband CW digital, satellite, and T-Star, and the newest digital mode this year is FT8. Yes. Usually 20 and 40 has been our money bands. So, I mean, like I said, this is one of those things, that's just the popular ones that people like to be on. But we are eligible to do 6 through 120. And like I said, we're also going to try to do a lot with FT8 to hopefully get a little bit more good contacts in. And so we're also using an online schedule. Whether you're operators or whether you're looking for the contacts, the online schedule for K2G is going to be really, really useful for people far and wide. And you'll see a little bit of that on one of my next slides. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. The annual awards, and we always talk about W4QO getting the QRP award. Here's the categories that they actually issued. And what they can consist of. So basically the top state, so which colony wins the entire event, which makes the most Qs. Top HF, high power, low power, QRP, CW, and the top club operator group. I don't like the way they necessarily do this. I think it's New Jersey. Basically, all of their operators are part of the same club, so they all would automatically get the top club operator group. But that's, you know, that's New Jersey for you. So just, and as far as the stats for the individual categories, I'm a numbers guy, so I like looking at numbers and what is it going to take to get this kind of stuff. So I mean, you're talking 12,000 Qs, almost 13,000 for the top state. That's some pretty good numbers. High power, 4,000. Low power, which is still 250 watts or less, 36. QRP, 914. That's not too shabby, even for QRP. And CW, 1904. And like I said, you see 12,000 for the club is not very far away from the 12,838. Georgia is usually obviously getting the QRP, and there's a gentleman that's usually snagging the HF high power for us as well. He's operated that in Macon, and he's I don't think that was actually him this last year. I think he had he actually welcomed his great grandson, and you know, and he was at the hospital or to be there. Don't know where his priorities were, but it was a ham radio. The difference between, actually, let me go back up. All right, so obviously the top state and colony was 12,838. Guess how many points were different between the number 1 and the number 2 slot? It was like 5 contacts. It was crazy. South Carolina was upset. So back in 2015, and these are all the numbers as far back as I could go, which wasn't all that far, but this will give you a little bit of idea about where we were versus where we're going. We placed 8 with 9,000 Qs, and we were 6,000 away from first place. The very next year, we bumped from 8 up to 4, and we were only 2,400 away from first place. What was interesting about last year is we dropped down to 5th, but we were only almost 2,000. We were less than 2,000 Qs from first place, so we actually made improvements, even though the placings didn't necessarily represent that. So there was a lot more people between 5th and 1st than there were in the previous years. In 2018, can we take first place? I really think that we can. It's going to take some pretty good operators and some pretty good numbers, and I have a feeling that we're going to be able to have that this year. Of course, band conditions and, you know, other states, because you never know what they're going to try to put in their game too. So I think it's a good possibility, but I think it's going to take a whole lot of work. Yay, recordings. That was sound with that. I worked really hard on that sound file. Oh. So the goals for K2G in 2018, we're going to put some top-notch operators on there. We've got to get there and the queues. We want to open up the opportunities for the technicians to actually come in, and the way we're going to do that is with satellite contacts. We've already been doing that over the last couple of years. This is the first year that a state, and I guess leaving this because the state's not done this yet, is introducing D-Star as a way of making the contacts. The event opened it up last year whenever they said that the Great Britain station, you could contact them via D-Star, because they were only making like 2,000 contacts per year, and nobody was able to make the contact. People were getting frustrated about it, why not get on the air, yada, yada, yada. So they opened up that, and that's a great way for the technicians to also get involved and hopefully pique their interest to where maybe they get their general between, I guess, then and the very next year. And we're also going to encourage a lot of our operators to don't forget your 6 and 10 meters, because you give somebody some 10-meter contacts on the technician portions, they're going to be some really happy campers out there. My YL was actually a technician, and she was all jumping up and down. I got 3 states on 10. Hey. She's a general now, so she has no excuses. And also, we're also going to cover as many open bands as possible. So if 160 is open in the middle of the night, let's go ahead and get it. I don't know why I keep getting assigned to 160 in the middle of the afternoon and 10 meters at night, but that's what they give me, so that's what I take. Also, one thing that Jim actually offered, actually suggested a couple years ago, I don't know why I didn't take it up and run with it, but this was all his idea, is assign a triple play award. So if anybody contacts K2G in the 3 different modes, we give them a little sticker on their QSL card, and that gives them the incentive to, hey, let's make the 3 contacts, and they each count as one individual contact. So That's something that we're definitely going to be introducing this year. And I honestly think it's going to take close to 14,000 cues for us to actually place. I mean, if you look at the growth of the entire event and where we've come from, I think it's going to take close to 14,000 cues, which is going to be approximately 700 cues per op. And if you are an operator, don't forget to get your clean sweep. So this is one of the clubs that I definitely want to actually keep on board. You guys have actually put up some very nice operators on the K2G event, and so this year, like I said, we're having to limit it to just 5 operators per club, because obviously we're giving that exact same limit to the other clubs also. And so basically the requirements for the individual operators are, obviously you have to be an FCC licensed amateur radio operator, general class or above. You have to operate from within the state, no remotes in or out. It just gets complicated whether it's allowed or not. And basically agree to participate by the online schedule, where if you are scheduled for 40 meters CW, nobody else gets that slot and keeps taking the spots away from you and all that kind of stuff. And basically to commit to a personal goal of 500 contacts. Well, I just said it's going to take 700 to get to the goal. That's why I'm only asking for 5, because we're going to have some guys put over 5,000 to 6,000 cues. So that's going to make it for people that say only make 500 or even 400. Like I said, this is obviously just a goal. But just know that if you're an operator, this is a really tough week. It's a holiday week. A lot of vacations going on, families in town. People have their own celebration ways, beverages, whatever. So, like I said, it's for those that just make sure you understand what it's going to take. That 500 cues within 1 week, it can get tough. So don't let it sneak up on you.
Whoops, you broke it.
Wasn't me.
Okay, and I also need your ADIF files within 24 hours after the end of the event. So after it's done, just go ahead and zip it up and just email it over to me. That way I can get that to Ken, because he's on my tail trying to get all the numbers where he can tell you who is first. And so we like to get those ADIFs within 24 hours after the end of the contest, where I can get that to them, and I don't catch any grief from him, because he can be pretty consistent. So if you get a chance, write this website down. It's k4nhw.com/K2G. This is where you're going to find the online schedule. For people who aren't operating as K2G, this is still going to be helpful for you, because if you've got an opening in your logbook, hey, I need 80 meters on a single sideband, you can actually look and see when somebody's going to be on, who's going to be on, and if you have an antenna that you can point toward their direction, like I say, who's going to be on, to where if there's nobody scheduled for that slot, there's no need in turning your radio on and going up and down the bands and not be able to hear anybody. This is what it looks like. So basically, that 40 meters, that's a single sideband. Oh, KS4KJ, check it out. He's on for 3 hours. Check it out. So obviously, before he got on and after he gets off, you got to go somewhere else. So, but this is going to be a great place to look, to where if you need a slot filled, you know where to go, you know what time, you know what bands are going to be filled. And great, this is actually a pretty good coverage here. This was obviously in the day whenever 20 and 40 were open, but Tim gave it his best shot on 17, so poor guy. So like I said, I mean, it's a pretty popular contest. A lot of you guys have already heard of it. No doubt have already operated it. How many people have actually operated as K2G? As K2G. Okay, so we got a couple. Like I said, it's really a whole lot of fun. Like I said, it represents the entire state. And as far as the state managers, there's only 13 of us. So this is actually a really neat experience for me to be able to go out and coordinate and rally the troops. That way we can put Georgia on there. Does anybody have any questions about the event, or I guess about what we're doing lately, or does anybody have any questions about 13 colonies? John?
It's been a year since we did it, so I forget what you yesterday. You mentioned 17 meters. Are the walk bands active for this?
Yes, everything between 6 and 160. So they're opening it up to absolutely everything. I don't want to say this is a loose event, but their rules are pretty easy to abide by. So yeah, like I said, that's definitely ones. And a lot of people like to get at least every single band knocked out. Those are definitely ones that that are definitely in play. Any other questions? Let's all couple other hands go up. Nobody got any questions? You back there in the back. Oh, why am I wearing this shirt? Oh, great question. I'm glad you asked. Does anybody want to go on an expedition? If you haven't heard, I've been trying to find somebody to actually fill a couple of slots. We're taking a group down to Dry Tortuga in a couple of months and looking for people to go. It's really a great place. I was down there in 2016 when the national parks on the air. It's closer to Cuba than it is Miami, but it's still U.S. territory, so no passports needed. But it's a really phenomenal place to go. If you haven't been able to actually go and actually operate from there, it's like no noise. Where we turn on our radio, it was like, did we even turn on our antennas? Did we plug them in right? Because we just didn't hear it. Actually, Tim was actually down there with me also. And
so is that an IOTA, or how is it classified for people?
it is an IOTA. It is 2, if not 3 lighthouses. It's got a whole bunch of numbers with it. It was a national park on the air. They still do a national park event, and so it's also going to count as that. But this year is really unique because it is a very rare grid square. And in fact, it's not even been activated as of today yet. So I think we probably may be the first people going down there to actually activate that grid square. So yeah, so that's going to be really neat. So that was the whole purpose of actually, I guess, going down there. I've got a couple extra slots. This is going to be a really great spot for either like a father-son combo or just 2 people that just want to be exposed to maybe the other side of the pile-up or expedition operating without having to dump tens of thousands of dollars and be away from the house for 2 months, all that kind of stuff. So if anybody's interested, please, I guess, either drop me an email or catch me afterwards. Like I said, I got a couple slots. I would hate to give those up. I'm going to go have a blast. I ain't gonna lie about that. So I would like to take a couple down there. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to let me know. And then we'll go from there. One little story is like, the last time we were down there, it was like we got up Saturday, I think it was, we turned on the radios, and we couldn't make a contact to save our life. And after you get done, calling CQ for like 20 minutes, only making 2 contacts, it's kind of, after we get back, we actually found out that we had a Class G3 solar storm that actually hit us, so we had no idea there was no internet access out there. But we were trying to pack up. I think this was Sunday night, and the bands just opened up, and the God smiled upon us, and Tim's out there banging out CW. And I tell you, if you never saw this guy operate, he is like laser focused. I mean, it's like him and that pack. Nothing else matters around him. So we're like literally, it's like, oh my gosh, we've got to take down this station. We've got like antennas to take down. And he's just okay, that's fine. So we start taking the station down around him. He's sitting at his chair, and he was clearly taking the station down around him. We took the tent, we took the other chairs, we took everything, and we've got a picture somewhere of him sitting in the middle of this place, 1 chair, 1 table, everything else off of it. He's just, and then he finally says, "Oh, you all ready?" It's hilarious time. So anyway, so does anybody have any questions either about Tortuga or about 13 colonies? If not, I will hand it over to the next. Hey. Oh, here we go.